Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to today's Real Talk. All right, let's get started. You know what? In the past 2 days, something very strange happened in China. Suddenly, noodles were sold out. After news broke that Nicolas Maduro had been arrested, Chinese people celebrated. In several regions, people marked the moment by eating noodles. Noodle noodles, it's a traditional food for celebration. We eat noodles on birthdays. So it's almost like cake, eating cake here. And in one video, a Chinese man said with excitement, he said, "Today is a good day. We have to eat noodles." The noodle sellers are stunned. Everything's sold out. Unbelievable, he said. The person who reposted the video added that the people are awakening. And he said, when the Chinese Communist Party finally collapses, noodles will be even harder to buy. And this level of bluntness online shocked many people, right, inside mainland China. And they say Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, is a wild place now. And one person said he didn't sleep for 2 nights because of the excitement. And he wrote, on Douyin, 快手, Bilibili, 头条, NetEase, Sina or Sina, which are all media platforms in China. He said, the comments are all the same. The more I read, the more excited I got. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. He went on to say, time is running out for the CCP and for Xi Jinping. All right, so that's a introduction. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so right now. This is a channel dedicated to in-depth analysis of China, Chinese politics, economy, and society. All right, well, after the United States captured Maduro, who is a close ally of the CCP, Chinese netizens cheered and celebrated in a very Chinese way, or I should say in very Chinese ways. Other than eating noodles, they did something else. Almost overnight, a remix of an old song called Beijing Welcomes You went viral. This song was originally used to promote tourism with smiley faces and Olympic-era optimism. But this time, Chinese netizens kept the lyrics and replaced the visuals with a US B-2 bomber. And the message couldn't be clearer. Let me play the video. Now, I must tell you, I cannot play the music because it has copyright. So what I asked Chris to do was still play the visual and then show the lyrics, but without music. So you will see, here we go. Well, where is it? Can you see? Let me read. Start from the beginning. Okay, so this is no sound, but the lyrics are are on the screen, but it's just so funny. I mean, we actually hear the song and then see the visual. It's just it's hilarious. Yeah, and then this video, let's strive to all surpass ourselves. Yeah, and all right, let me come back. And this song attracted comments. You know, the comments are very, very clear. Some people said, this is welcoming the US military into China. It's obvious people want the US to step in. Welcome to visit and take the top leader away while you're here. Welcome the US military to arrest Xi Jinping and other CCP leaders and put them on trial for crimes against humanity. I mean, in a country where people are not allowed to speak freely, I mean, this level of bluntness is unseen, and the euphemism of the song becomes a weapon. And this isn't new. Another song that has been used this way for years is a sad Malaysian love song from 2005 called Unfortunately, It Wasn't You. In Chinese, 可惜不是你. And it was in August 20. The song was produced in 2005, but in August 2022, after Japan's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated, Chinese netizens reposted that song everywhere, saying, "Unfortunately, it wasn't you." The meaning was unmistakable. Regret that the victim was not a CCP leader or the CCP leader. And then it happened again when former CCP leader Jiang Zemin died in 2022, and again when former Premier Li Keqiang suddenly died in 2023. Each time, the same song resurfaced. Same lyrics, same message. Too bad it's not you. And this time, there was no ambiguity. It's a curse, a protest, and a direct message to Xi Jinping. And every time the response was predictable, comments restricted, accounts frozen, and posts erased. But the sentiment didn't disappear, because you can censor words, but you can't censor people's imagination. Now, after Maduro and his wife were detained, Beijing immediately launched an anti-US propaganda. State media released photos of their prison cell at New York's Metropolitan Detention Center. Let's see where. Oh, I need to remove this. Here we go. Are we seeing? Yeah. And I think the Chinese media showed the picture of their cell units, with the hope that their Chinese audiences would feel anger or fear. But it didn't work. Instead, Chinese netizens started comparing. Some said, "This looks like a luxury suite. It even has a bathroom." Others joked, "Who said this is detention? This is R&R. Maduro worked so hard, now he can relax in New York." One comment went viral. It says, 6 square meters for free isn't bad, because this prison cell is 6 square meters. So this guy said, 6 square meters for free isn't bad. Much better than my 7 square meter room in Beijing that costs half of my salary. And someone else even asked, aren't the Americans making a mistake? How is Maduro supposed to repent if he is living so comfortably in New York? Now, this is Chinese dark humor at its finest. Around the same time, a man inside mainland China released a public statement. It was short, calm, unmistakable. Let me show you the man. And this is what he said. He said, "They want you to be afraid. Afraid enough to stay silent, afraid enough to forget. But today, I'm making this declaration. We are no longer afraid. We will no longer accept oppression or abuse of power. Your system collapses the moment it faces public scrutiny. It is nothing but a paper tiger. The net of justice is already spread wide. The first response is waiting, only a trigger is needed." And then this person went on to say, "Remember this, the battle for justice will never be absent. Fear is their last weapon." So I don't know where this man is now, but the fact that he spoke up tells us something important. Fear is no longer only at the bottom. And according to multiple sources, after Maduro's arrest, fear moved upward to Beijing and the very center of Zhongnanhai. Since yesterday, news is circulating in Beijing that Xi Jinping has begun further strengthening his personal security system. Military bases around Beijing have shown unusually frequent troop movements today. And it's likely that many underground bunker systems around the capital have also been activated. Now, some analysts believe Maduro was captured because the US had already obtained high-level classified intelligence before the operation. What Xi Jinping should fear most, they say, is not foreign forces, but internal betrayal, because the real danger comes from people around him. Now, before Maduro was captured, remember Bill Gertz, right? Veteran U.S. national security reporter Bill Gertz posted on social media on December 28th, saying, if the Chinese Communist Party invades Taiwan, Beijing could face a Soleimani-style drone decapitation strike targeting every member of the Politburo Standing Committee, possibly including Xi Jinping himself. Now, there's a former U.S. Defense Department official, Tony Hu, who was originally from Taiwan. He served in the U.S. in the Pentagon for decades, and he's now retired. And he has moved back to Taiwan. He explained that many people inside the Pentagon use Gertz to release information that cannot be disclosed officially. And he said that Bill Gertz has earned a reputation for being very reliable and credible. So he said that. So this makes Bill Gertz's claim unusually credible. And he also Tony Hu also pointed out that the Soleimani case was an assassination, not a live capture, and that the two are fundamentally different. And he said, arrest and trial versus direct killing. If you apply this to China, assassination would clearly be much easier than sending troops into China to capture someone alive and extract them. That may be what Gertz was trying to imply. So in an interview with the Taiwanese media, Tony Hu said that Maduro's live capture is Xi Jinping's nightmare. All right, so under intense authoritarian pressure and with massive external incentives, anyone could become the next person to sell out Xi Jinping, right? Because Tony Hu said, they would not worry too much about missiles, but they would certainly worry about people close to him who could turn into internal collaborators at any moment. He said what truly sends chills down the CCP leadership spine is that this operation proves one brutal truth: money can move anything. Right? So anyone could turn against Xi Jinping. Now, actually, there are indeed several recent incidents showing that Xi Jinping is and should be fearful of his safety due to this loyalty crisis. I'll cover that in a separate program, either on Thursday or this weekend. So stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll do that in a separate program. Actually, I've been wanting to do that for the past week, but the current latest development has taken precedence or priority. All right, now let's talk about something that's very interesting. There's a pattern. There's a pattern that no one talks about. I think the biggest irony of Maduro's fall is this pattern of downfall of dictators. And here's where things get interesting. In recent years, foreign leaders close to Beijing have been falling, one after another. There is a pattern. Almost every downfall is preceded by a major meeting with Xi Jinping or Xi Jinping's special representative or envoy. You know that just hours before Maduro was captured, he was meeting Xi's representative? Maduro may be the most dramatic case, but he's not the only one. Now, in 2025, let me show you this. Remember this man? Nepal's pro-Beijing Prime Minister, KP Oli, had long promoted Belt and Road cooperation. In last August, he visited China and attended Beijing's military parade on September the 3rd. And they had a meeting, and Xi Jinping called the two countries friends for generations. 1 week later, everything collapsed. On September 4th, Nepal's Communist Party announced plans to block YouTube, X, and Facebook, some of the social media platforms, including YouTube, X, and Facebook. There are also like WhatsApp. There may be a few others. So that decision ignited massive Gen Z-led protests, and then it eventually led the resignation of Prime Minister Oli on September the 9th. And that's less than a week after returning from China. And soon after, footage circulated online. Protesters stormed the headquarters of his party, which is the Communist Party of Nepal, and they threw Xi Jinping's portrait into a fire. Okay, let's move further back. Then there is the Bangladesh. Remember Hasina? Prime Minister Hasina, it was another old friend of Beijing. China poured in money, over $24 billion in loans. By 2022, China accounted for 65% of Bangladesh foreign investment. In July 2024, Hasina visited Beijing. The relationship was upgraded to a comprehensive strategic partnership. 26 days later, her regime collapsed. On August 5th of that year, furious crowds surrounded her residence in Dhaka, and she fled by military helicopter to India. Later, Bangladesh's War Crime Tribunal sentenced her to death. And then there is the Syrian leader, Assad, Bashar al-Assad. Now, Chinese media called him a good friend, a good brother, and a good partner. And in 2023, during the Hangzhou Asian Games, Beijing chartered a special plane to fly Assad and his family to China, and another one to send them back. Now, Xi Jinping even opened the front gate of Liying Temple, a gate normally kept closed out of respect for Buddha. It's an ancient temple that has a tradition that doesn't open its front door. People all enter through the side doors to show respect. And so Xi Jinping not only opened the front doors, but also rolled out the red carpet for the Assad family. At the time, many Chinese whispered the same question. Will this really bring the Assad family good luck? Guess what? 1 year later, on December 8th, 2024, uprising erupted in Damascus. And after ruling Syria for 24 years, Assad was overthrown and fled to Russia. And now Beijing has a visitor. So while the world is still focused on Maduro's capture, another head of state is visiting Beijing right now. He cannot be called a dictator, although some of his countrymen perceive him that way. He is one of the most pro-Beijing heads of state in democratic countries. South Korea's president, Lee Jae-myung. Many people in South Korea oppose him and call him Beijing Lee or China Lee. Now, the question is simple. Will his China visit bring him good luck or bad luck? Let's find out. Now, this is the first time in 6 years that a South Korean president has visited China. The last one was President Moon Jae-in in 2019. I heard today that traditionally, South Korean presidents make their first state visit in a year to an ally. But this time, Lee Jae-myung broke that tradition by visiting China, unless he sees China as an ally. So in early July 2026, he chose China for his first major overseas visit of the new year. And that choice alone is highly symbolic, right? And in his speeches, he calls the summit the first year of restoring China-Korea relations. And during the visit, South Korea and China signed 15 cooperation agreements covering areas such as green energy, artificial intelligence, supply chains, and industrial collaboration. He also brought with him a massive economic delegation of more than 200 people. Among them were South Korea's biggest names in industry. They are, I'm going to just skip the names, but they are the chairman of this the heir of Samsung family, right? The chairman of Samsung Electronics, Lee Jae-myung, and the chairman of SK Group, Jae-myung, chairman of Hyundai Motor Group, and then chairman of LG Group. So this was not just diplomacy, this was business diplomacy on a grand scale. And former LS Group chairman, he was the former chairman of LG, and he is the cousin of the current chairman. And he's basically a member of the LG family. Made a comment that quickly went viral in China. He said, I watched the clip, and he said it in English. He said, I have a BYD car in Korea. I drive a BYD. It's pretty good. Now all the products come from China. China is #1 in the world. Now here's the problem. You can't just say things to please the CCP and expect Chinese consumers to buy it. Even Chinese consumers know the reality. If you can afford it, you buy a Tesla, not a BYD. BYD does not have good quality. It's for people who can't afford a Tesla, but still want an EV. So the question is obvious. Does he really drive a BYD? He might have driven a BYD, but I don't think he drives a BYD often. Even many Chinese know better than to say that out loud. All right, so now behind the smiles and handshakes, many Koreans and people like myself are worried because when Korean high-tech companies collaborate deeply with China, there's always the same risk: forced technology transfers, intellectual property leakage, outright theft and espionage. And this concern is not hypothetical. It's based on years of precedent. So people are worried. And against the backdrop of rising China-Japan tensions and Beijing's growing diplomatic isolation, Li's visit mattered a great deal to Beijing. At the bilateral meeting, Xi Jinping said, more than 80 years ago, China and Korea achieved victory together against Japanese militarism at great sacrifice. The two countries must join hands to safeguard the fruits of victory in World War II. Li responded this way. He said, Korea and China once stood together against the aggression of Japanese militarism. Now, this line obviously is music to Xi Jinping's ears, but it reveals a serious historical problem for President Li. The China that fought alongside Korea was not the CCP China. It was the Republic of China, the same government that now exists in Taiwan, and the very government Beijing is trying to erase. The CCP did not lead China's resistance against Japan. In fact, Mao Zedong later repeatedly thanked Japan 7 times, according to historians. In total, I mean, at least publicly, we don't know how many times he thanked the Japanese in private, but publicly, historians said he thanked the Japanese 7 times for invading China, claiming it helped the CCP seize power. So someone should really update President Li on World War II history. when he made that statement. It's not convincing to people at all. So Li Jae-myung's deference to Xi was also obvious in his language. He described China-Korea relations as two ships sailing on the same sea in the same direction. Really? Are they going in the same direction? I hope not. He also quoted a Chinese proverb. So hard to say. All of a sudden, I can't say the word. Okay, here's what it says. It says 100 pieces of gold can buy a house. 1,000 pieces of gold can buy a neighbor, but a good neighbor is priceless. For South Korea, China is a neighbor worth 1,000 pieces of gold. But here's the reality that Lee seems to ignore. Without the so-called good neighbor, the Korean Peninsula wouldn't be divided today. There would have been no Korean War, no millions of casualties, and no Kim family dictatorship devastating North Korea for 3 generations. Now, I must say that amongst U.S. allies in East Asia, South Korea is the most penetrated by CCP influence. Beyond a pro-Beijing president, 102 South Korean, this is information sent by a subscriber to me today. I thank him for the information. And he's the one who actually reminded me of this subject. Anyway, his name is Robert. He's from Australia. He sent me 2 emails early this morning and suggesting that I talk about Li Jae-myung's visit. And I followed his suggestion. So thank you, Robert, for the information. Okay, so here's what he sent me. 102 South Korean lawmakers are members of the Korea-China Parliamentary Federation, which is a pro-CCP organization. And South Korea's National Assembly has 300 members. That means more than a third of lawmakers are inside a CCP influenced structure. And even more striking, a senior figure in the Democratic Party of Korea, his name is Jong Chun-rae, and he's a senior leader in the DPK, the Democratic Party of Korea, which is President Lee's own party. And this Jong Chun-rae is a member of that federation. And this Jong person has a long history of radical anti-US activism. And also alarming, as the world increasingly supports Taiwan, as we see that now across the globe, South Korea has moved in the opposite direction. Starting in last February, South Korea's border control system reclassified Taiwan as China Taiwan. They put China first and then put Taiwan in parentheses after the word China for all inbound travelers. So when you identify your origination, where you're coming from, the country you're coming from, or where your destination country is, and if it's Taiwan, your selection, digital selection is China, and then in parentheses, Taiwan. And Taiwan's foreign ministry formally requested a correction. South Koreans ignored them. And then on December 1st last year, 31 South Korean lawmakers introduced a bill to abolish the national security law, a longstanding goal of North Korea. So without the national security law, North Korean spies cannot be prosecuted. So this move alarmed the public, and citizens are now signing petitions to oppose abolishing the law. And then there was this moment that I must tell you. Okay, here we go. President Li Jae-myung took a selfie with Xi Jinping and their wives using a Xiaomi phone, a gift Xi Jinping had given him the year before. And Li posted the picture. I should show you the selfies. So this is while they took the selfies. Somebody took the photos, and this is the actual selfie that he posted on X. So he wrote, "The image quality is certainly good, right?" Chinese netizens mocked him immediately. They said, "Why use Xiaomi when you have Samsung?" Here's the irony. Um, it's almost like, President Trump taking a selfie with Xi Jinping, um, using a Chinese phone, and said, the camera has pretty good quality. And then the Chinese say, why not an Apple? Anyways, uh, so here's the irony. I need to tell you about the irony. The last president who publicly showed off a Chinese cell phone given by Xi Jinping is now sitting in a New York prison. And that man was precisely Maduro. He proudly displayed a Huawei phone, also a gift from Xi Jinping. So history has a sense of humor, and sometimes it has a very dark one. Despite the smiling photo, it's not clear whether President Lee got what he wanted from this trip, because his chief of staff said in a radio interview on Monday that Beijing was unlikely to lift its ban on Korean culture anytime soon. The Korean entertainment industry, Korea soap operas, movie, everything, and they're very popular in Asia, but the CCP is banning them. So despite all the kowtowing, of President Lee Jae-myung in China, Beijing is unlikely to lift the ban. And of course not. It's an ideological battle for the CCP. So politics in South Korea right now is very divided after Lee's party paralyzed former President Yoon Suk-yeol's executive branch and impeached him after President Yoon, the former president, declared martial law. Many people in South Korea accuse President Lee for stealing the election after President Yoon was impeached, and they oppose him for his pro-Beijing position. So it's interesting, following the pattern I mentioned above, and following the cell phone selfie incident, people are saying, well, will Lee Jae-myung's trip to Beijing eventually become his Waterloo and cost him politically? I don't know, but let's wait and see. It's very possible. All right, so that's what I have. Okay, let's see what people say. We have covered a lot of things, from noodles to Beijing welcomes you, to a song, to Lee Jae-myung's selfie with Xi Jinping. Oh, Blue Soul. Well, thank you for the super sticker. All right, thank you. All right, let's see. Questions? Oh, Nicole forwarded one. Oh, here's one. From Gregory Dodge. Lei, you're awesome. You're one of the most, if not the most, insightful person on China today. I will start sending you super chats in the future. You are worth it. Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate that. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear the feedback. Let's see. Questions, comments, thoughts, criticisms? All right, people are talking about Tim Waltz here. Let's see. Wow, a lot of conversations back and forth. Good. Sanli Lei, longtime listener, keep up the good work. I believe the rest, you been having internet problems, may be a malware in your router. Might want to get it checked. Yeah, I don't think it's normal. I noticed that some of the other quote unquote anti-CCP YouTubers also experience like blackout during their live streams. I saw that today. So I don't know if this is some kind of attack going on because it's not normal. Excuse me. Good point. I'll definitely check it out. All right. Don't forget to like. Yes, don't forget to like and share the videos. Okay. South Korea, South Korea. BYD, someone said. Lee Jae-myung equals Maduro of Korea. Uh, oh, I think he's better. I think he's a little better than Maduro, at least on the surface. Okay. Somebody said Lei cracks me up sometimes. Did I? That's good. Lee, someone said Lee is not a real leader, but a criminal. But is a criminal. Yeah, his popularity is he's not very popular. There's so many people against him in South Korea. There are protests, and he banned the protests in front of Chinese embassy, but allowed the protests in front of American embassy. So that's not fair. If you ban both, or you allow both. Why do you stop people from protesting in front of the Chinese embassy only? That shows his anti-American activism or spirit of activism. Anyways, all right, let's see. Yeah, one country that I do worry in East Asia is South Korea. Sith BK. And that's why last President Yoon Suk Yeol ordered martial law, and South Korean went crazy, and the current president put him in jail. There goes K-wave. Yeah. Because his hands were tied. President Yoon couldn't do anything because the parliament was controlled by the opposition party. It's similar to the situation in Taiwan right now. Although it's a little better in Taiwan because the Taiwanese public are more aware of CCP's infiltration and agenda, whereas the South Koreans, many of them are oblivious. So President Yoon's hands were tied. He couldn't do anything. And he actually discovered election irregularities. And there's a large number of Chinese living in South Korea. And some of the lawmakers want to allow these foreigners to vote in elections. So out of frustration, President Yoon ordered martial law, and he was impeached immediately, even though ordering martial law is within his constitutional rights, but he was immediately impeached and now thrown into jail. And his wife was also trialed for what? For accepting like gifts, handbags. So yeah. The Korean politics. I made a video about the bad feng shui of Korean presidential palaces. No, I should say palace, the Blue House. And President Yoon was the first one who moved out of the Blue House. He didn't live there because of the bad omen, but still he didn't escape the fate. Texas Panda. On your other channel, you did a presentation on the Blue House in South Korea, and people should force to live in it. Shouldn't be. Yeah, I made a video of that. You should check it out. It's one of my early videos. I think maybe my third video in Lace Looking Glass. It's shocking. Almost there was only one president who didn't escape some kind of persecution, political persecution during or after his term. All of them suffered some level of political persecution. It's brutal, and people say it has to do with the South Korean flag, which is missing some elements. And also has to do with the bad feng shui of the South Korean presidential palace, which is not fitting not a good idea as a presidential office. I mean, palace, residence, I should say. All right. Someone say you made a big mistake to proclaim martial law prematurely. Yeah, that was a bad decision he made. President Yoon is known to be a very gutsy person. He's but but then unfortunately that was a bad decision. Yeah, his cabinet should help him. It should offer. It should cool him down. That was a major setback for South Korea, in my opinion. All right, but someone said no mistake by Yoon. People support him probably feel differently, but it was a tough decision. It's not easy being in his position at the moment. All right. Any questions? Someone said Netflix foreign. So what do you think will happen to European leaders when Xi Jinping falls? The ones who were pro him, pro him. I think when Xi Jinping falls, the regime will collapse. Xi Jinping has tied himself to the regime, so they go together. It won't be that Xi Jinping falls and the regime stays. They will go down together. And so that's why it's so hard to take him down, because his rivals within the party fear the accusation of ending the regime, even though they want to take him out. So we say when Xi Jinping falls, a lot of the dignitaries around the world, they will be shamed, because the deals they made with the CCP under the table will be all exposed. There will be many famous people, individuals. They don't have to be just heads of state. They could be, wealthy people, famous people. All of those. The Chinese will speak out. I think post CCP, the Chinese people will be the most formidable force in restoring world order. I believe so, because they will expose all the dirty laundries that have been covered up around the world. And I think they will be the force that will bring down socialism or communism worldwide. And yeah, changes will start from the Middle Kingdom. So until then, I think the changes will be on a smaller scale. All right, Brian Cobb. The competence of the U.S. military in Venezuela was impressive. The PLA hasn't fought a battle since invading North Vietnam in 1979. Is PLA ready to take Taiwan by force? Your thoughts? No, it's not. I have made a number of videos last week during the holidays about the number of generals who have fallen in the past 12 months, if not 24 months. 24 months, I should say. And 79% of the top generals are out. They're either detained, died, or under investigation, or removed. So they're not in any position to fight any war. And then the anti-war sentiment, morale is a big problem. However, the regime would do everything it can to cover up. But I don't think the PLA is in any shape to start a war. Someone say, Brad say, I believe you are right, Lei, but the oligarchs will remain. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, Nicole forwarded the latest videos I made about 2026. William Edelheit say, Lei, recently you've spoken as if she is fully in control. Prior, you had spoken as if Zhang Youxia had full control of the army and the elders control Xi. What is happening? Okay, here's what's happening. Xi Jinping does not control the military. Zhang Youxia does not. Zhang Youxia has control of the military, but Zhang Youxia doesn't have control over the regime. So Xi Jinping has control on the political side, but his power is limited. It's very difficult to. Okay, I think they're in a balance of terror. I think no one is in full control as of now. I'm not saying Xi Jinping is in full control. He is in control because his opponents don't want to be blamed for the fallouts. So they want him to, they want him to appear to be in control so that he can be blamed for all the mistakes the CCP has made, right? For being a wolf warrior, for being provocative with Japan. So right now, I think, and I also heard, I didn't tell you, some of the reform-minded CCP leaders like Wang Yang, they refuse to step in and be the interim CCP leader. I heard that repeatedly, that he refused to step in. I think it's very smart of him to do that, because what are you going to do? You can't, as long as people like Hu Jintao still wants to protect the regime or save the regime, there's no point of replacing Xi Jinping. You might as well leave Xi Jinping in the place and let him do everything he can to tear down the regime, because he's doing that. So I spoke, if I spoke as if Xi Jinping is in full control, that may not be what I intended, because he does not control the military, and without having control of the military, he's not in full control, and that's very clear. Okay. All right. Anna Bentnez Sanchez of Spain is the PCC man in Europe. Spain, of all the European countries, Spain is heavily controlled by Beijing. I once did a program to show you that. Remember the power outage in Spain that we saw last year? Was it last year or 2024? There was a major power outage in Spain. It's because the Spanish government allowed Chinese to control its power grid. The CCP has I think, great control over the Spanish power grid, and they had a power outage. So Spain is one country that's heavily infiltrated in Europe. Sadly, it's probably the most infiltrated country in Europe. All right, let's see. Cam Hong Chung. New buzzword should be Beijing curse. Well, with what's happening in Iran, I mean, the world is we're holding our breath over the development in Iran, right? This is same with the Chinese. They're also closely monitoring what's happening in Iran, and when that regime is toppled, then it will have bigger rippling effect on China. So we're only day 6 of 2026, and look at what has happened. All right, that's the bottom. I reached the bottom of all the comments and questions. I think I will end it here. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in 2 days. Bye-bye.